Okay guys, so a lot of questions I've been getting is on the jockey. How do you precisely defend against someone? And what is the key benefits in controlling the speed? As I want to say is, I want to show you in this video how to defend and actually keep up to your opponent. Because the game is very, very effective as it is. AI is very, people don't understand, but AI is so effective. When you have the ball and you win the ball back, if the amount of how it's AI, it just runs into the ball. AI actually quite smart. People always ask me is, how do I know how to control the speed? How do I know what's the correct system? Now, truthfully speaking, the correct system, everyone has different systems. I go through my method, although they're a bit unorthodox, you could say. They make sense mathematically, and that is how I play my game. I don't base it on innuendos or hunches, as people like to say, but I base it on pure maths. It's the same way with fullbacks and centre back or anything that I've done. It's all pretty much on facts unless I state otherwise. And the reason I want to go with this is that people have been saying, look, people have been advising different jockey types, etc., etc. I'm going to be the first one to say, do whatever you want. I know most of my viewers prefer the more scientific and mathematical side, so I thought I'll go through it. You see, when you're using a normal jockey, you're almost at a fixed speed. So we're going to put the normal jockey in red, okay? A normal jockey, which is basically an L2, you're basically at a fixed speed. Now, let's say variably the speed is from a 0 to 100. Let's say, just in theory, that is the speed or the velocity of the player. Let's say in theory, okay? Now, if the L2 button is the jockey, let's say the jockey is, let's say, 25% of the speed, okay? And the running jockey, which is L2 plus R2, is 100%, okay? Now, the problem is, between 25, let's say that's 0, that's 25, and that's 100. The problem is, anywhere on this, I suppose you can say line, there's different integers, okay? And the truth is, at these points, anyone or any player can travel at different speeds. It will depend on a number of things, for example, okay? There will be, for example, if a player is using left stick dribbling. So in fact, let me just get the ball back to my player over there. Get the ball back to Saka. I'm going to try to pass the ball back because AI is so effective. So I'm just going to go to the top half of the pitch, okay? So I'm just going to show you. This is with Ben White. I'm going to try to get a better player here with Tierney. Okay, this might be a better example. Okay, so the problem is that if, for example, I use strafe dribbling, the speed is not the same as normal left stick dribbling. The speed at which you turn, the velocity at which you turn, this is the problem. It's the same thing with the strafe dribbling. So if I do strafe dribbling now, it all has different velocities and speeds. Now the problem is, if you just use either the running jockey or just the L2, you're just using two variables the entire time. You're playing catch up. Does that make sense? So let's say, for example, if you are running at 50% of the speed and then you go to 100%, if you're using the running jockey, but you're just holding the L2 button and then you sprint to the run button, you can't variably control how fast you get past your opponent. Do you see? Now, this wasn't an issue, so I'm going to leave this on the screen just for now. In fact, you know what, let me just clear it out. I'll put this on in a second. But the issue wasn't really there when jockeying was unassisted. It's because the game slowed you down. And that meant that even if you overcommitted, the game automatically adjusted the speed of the running jockey for you. So you never needed to do it yourself manually. But now with the patch that came out and they fixed that massive issue, you have to use manual jockeying. But the problem is that no one is actually doing it properly. They're just relying on this, either holding the L2 button. So let me get the ball back to the AI. As you can see, look, I'm not even controlling that controller. See how that ball, they get the ball off me? But yeah, they're just so used to either holding one speed or they're using the max speed. Now this is why I said the running jockey, you see your player, you face the ball at all times. Now, when you're defending, I only use the run button. Let's say, for example, there's a through ball in behind. Let's say there's a through ball in behind in theory, okay? So I'm just going to draw this back out. Let's say there's a through ball in behind. I would run to the through ball. But once I'm in a position to get the ball, I use the running jockey. So the running jockey is only used when there's a chance where you can intercept the ball or you're going to make a tackle. Otherwise, apart from that, if I'm pressing, I am pressing with the run button. But when I get next to the ball, I will then use the running jockey to make myself as big as possible. And you see, the running jockey is the same as a normal jockey. People keep saying it's different. It's not. In fact, it's actually easier for you. You don't believe me? Watch this. This is the normal jockey, okay? If you change from the jockey to the run button, or you change from the jockey to a normal running jockey, you do get a speed issue. You see that? how my players, they just stutter for a second. You see that? So you actually get a loss of speed when you change of direction. But if you use the run and jockey, you can actually curve your run and get no loss of speed here. So that is the benefit. And again, I know a lot of you guys already understand this, and you're probably like, Neil, why are you saying this again? But a lot of people don't. A lot of people just don't subscribe to my channel. They probably doubt me, and they don't understand what's the ideology behind it. So the problem is that if you can only run at essentially 2 speeds, you can't get the variables in between. And this is important because let's say, for example, if my opponent decides to exit with a strafe dribbling and I'm using the normal jockey, it's too minute for me to go there and then go to the normal run and jockey. Do you see how you wave away? Now, it's fine and dandy if you're doing this in Division 6. But as you go through to the higher divisions, a lot of top tier players are going to outsmart you. They're going to, for example, use a strafe dribbling, then exit. I mean, we haven't even talked about skill moves. I mean, skill moves are a completely different situation. They have their complete different exits. You got the fake shot, you got the first time fake shot, which I explained to you why it's probably the most effective skill move in FIFA, the first time fake shot, because it's the entry point and the velocity at which you exit in. You have all these factors that also all affect the way the player moves. See that velocity of that first time fake shot? That's all you need. That's the only skill move you need in FIFA. And that is why I always try to say, if you're going to use a defending stance, use the run and jockey and use the left analog stick to dictate the pace. Now, this is why people are parking the bus, because they're not doing this, and then they are going into a game. They're like, okay, you know what? Assisted. Remember, I said to you, don't use assisted jockeying, because when assisted jockeying gets patched, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, and that is why if you don't use the L stick plus L2 plus half, now people think they actually defend this way, but they're not. So you can actually have, well, not between 0, let's say between 1 to 100%. Because what it is, you can technically actually technically move slower. So I'll show you again, another example. If we skip this again, if I go back into, I get the ball back to my opponent here. If for example you hold the run and jockey, if you barely touch the left analog stick, you can run slower than the normal jockey's a fixed speed, but you can actually move slower than that, or incremental movements. You see that? And you can sidestep. Because sometimes your opponent on a very high level, what they will do is they'll fake one way and then they'll go the other way. Have you heard about the shot cancel? Remember the shot cancel? Now let's say with, for example, a top player like Mbappe, you can basically shot cancel and change direction very, very quickly. So like here, you can go like this and you can change direction very, very quickly. And because this exists, it's extremely hard for you to defend against this if you are a defender. And that is why on the top tier level, the way that the top tier pros do it is they unintentionally sometimes use the left analog stick to control the speed, or they do what I do. They use the run and jockey, but they go from left to right very, very rapidly, and they stay with the player. So you can actually fully extend the left analog stick and still control the speed. And that is what I do. So I don't actually incrementally move it. I just max it out all the way. But from skill and knowledge over time, I know the exact integer I need to apply to stay with my opponent. Does that make sense? I can make myself barely move. Look, if I go left and right very, very quickly, you can see I'm standing still. So that is how the top tier players deal with it, but they're doing it inadvertently. They're not actually thinking it. Well, they're not inadvertently, but they're doing it, but they're not actually thinking about it. Does that make sense? It's subconscious. From experience, they understand the game a lot. And that is why a lot of people are parking the bus, because people are saying, okay, you know what? Okay, I'm struggling in FIFA. What's the solution? So what they basically do is they go into the game, you know, I'm struggling. So this is what they do. They end up going like this. They end up putting drop back on, which is why I never take playing drop back. They go like this. And they go like this, and they put every single player on comeback and offense. And then if that's not bad enough, so let's say put everyone on stay back while attacking, whatever. And if that's not bad enough, do you know what else they do? They go into a game, and then they activate the D-pad tactic, overload the ball side. And then they become even more narrow. So then what happens is when the opponent switches the ball, plays like that, the team become very narrow, and that's what they rely on. So they end up going into a park the bus system because of their lack of defending. And in my opinion, this is truly the way to defend. This is, especially now post-patch, I generally believe everyone should go forward. I mean, a lot of people, I know, for example, there's a lot of people just used to using the normal L2 button and the R2 button, and they don't want to switch. That's completely fine, and maybe because they don't understand the logic behind it, but they've been playing the exact same way the entire time. Now, if you were to tell, for example, someone, for example, for example, like how I am, the difference, if you use my method or the most common method of running jockey with a left stick to control the speed, it will take some time to change. Okay, now it's kind of like with ball relative. Okay, ball relative, in the beginning, people were very, very skeptical on this. People said to me, you know, when I explained people to use ball relative, they looked at me and said, no, you know, why would you do that? Why would you use ball relative when you've been using player relative your entire life? Well, it's true. For pro players, I suggest no one to change because you're used to even like the jockey, let the pros defend how they want because they're used to it. They're defending that level on a very, very high level. Do you see that? But you're not comparing it to the majority. But with ball relative, once I realized that it's actually more efficient and effective mathematically and statistically speaking to get the ball to the defender without failure, and it's more efficient, then I made the change over. So a lot of things which I'll explain to you, it will take time. I remember when I first introduced the 5-2-1-2 and the 5-3-2, it took time, it took a year for the community to adapt. The fullbacks, the same thing. Ball relative, still probably not even there yet. So there's a lot of things that I will teach you that everyone has their own right what they want to choose. But what I'm trying to say is don't expect it to happen tomorrow. I'd rather you get better at yourself, learn the basics, as I mentioned, than to get better at the game. There's a lot of content creators, for example, that will teach you, for example, how to do a shot cancel, how to do this skill move, how to do this corner glitch and everything like that. I am not going to do that because it's not going to help you get better at the game. And that's the most important thing. But I just wanted to make this video just to inform you guys on that and why you're seeing more of a drop back system, why people are parking the buses because they're not used to defending, so they're resorting on a more park the bus system to defend against it. And that is the reason why. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take it easy, of course. I'll catch you next time. Peace, guys.